talking about Gavin Newsom and people who are not taking this seriously and fostering sort of a soft on crime, gang violence uh, stance, a public safety stance. And I looked into it, but I think I want us to watch this video because I don't think anyone can explain it better than this district attorney from Tulare County about a bill called AB 333, which is called the Step Forward Act. And he's going to explain why it is so terrible for California and why it's going to cause more gang violence and more gang crime. It's going to make our cities less safe.
Hello, Tulare County. As your district attorney, I believe that part of my job is to inform and share the reality of how public safety in the criminal justice system right here in Tulare County is being affected by decisions made in Sacramento by the governor and the legislature. A bill that very few people have heard of is Assembly Bill 333 relating to criminal street gangs. Governor Newsom signed this bill and it took effect January of 2022. It changes the law in several ways and ultimately reduces and limits our ability to charge and prove gang-related crimes. While current law does allow for an additional sentence to be imposed for crimes that benefit a gang, this new change will result in fewer cases having that additional punishment imposed. Also, the new law bifurcates or splits criminal gang allegations from other crimes in a criminal trial proceeding. In doing so, prosecutors must prove two phases of a case separately. First, that the crime was committed, followed by a separate trial phase proving the crime was gang-related. This bill also removes district attorneys' ability to prove a list of offenses that include some fraud and identity theft crimes, but most shockingly, felony vandalism, from the list of crimes that define a pattern of criminal gang activity. In other words, the felony crime of tagging gang graffiti across our cities can no longer be used as evidence that gang members engage in a pattern of criminal gang activity. But I want you to know that I was against this new law. Due to the aggressive efforts of law enforcement in Tulare County and members of my office, we've seen a drastic decrease in gang crimes in our cities. The number of alleged gang crimes submitted to our office over the past few years has reduced as much as 40%. But the ramifications of this bill are simple. You're going to hear about crimes committed, and this law will now limit our ability to charge the special enhancement and increase the punishment. Once again, the legislature has reduced sentences for some of the most dangerous criminals who prey upon our communities. This law was also applied retroactively. So my office and law enforcement are going to have to review every pending case to ensure the evidence meets the requirements of the new law. My fear is that inevitably some of our cases will now have that additional punishment stripped. I hope this short summary has been helpful to raise some awareness of the new law. But going forward, please know that members of my office are going to continue to charge gang enhancements when there's sufficient evidence to establish the required elements. But thank you for listening, and God bless you.
All right, so that video was from several years ago when AB 333 was signed. To break it all down legally, what he's talking about is they've now made it so it used to be you could get a gang enhancement to your sentence, meaning the sentence would be harsher if they could kind of link you to gang activity. So in terms of he was talking about graffiti, that's one example. I watched another clip of people who were advocating for AB 333, and they were talking about how this one guy who was a member of a gang, and they were advocating for it because they were like, well, this is so unjust, this isn't fair. Their hypothetical was, well, if this guy went to the store, I guess this really happened, and he was a gang member and he needed to get milk for his starving child or something, and he didn't have the money, so he stole the milk. Then they were like, oh, he could get a gang enhancement because he stole the milk and he was part of a gang, so it made it a harsher penalty. So their argument is that's not fair because it's not really gang related, even though that same case, he stole a beer, which then I guess he shared with his gang buddies. Regardless, that's their argument, is that he was a member of a gang, he stole milk, and they were like, well, he shouldn't be penalized as a gang member. So that's what AB 333 is all about, is they're trying to take that away. And like the district attorney was saying, is you can first go through and prove that the crime did happen. So in the case if it's graffiti or robbery or something like that, then you could say, okay, well, this is the crime. You've been convicted of this crime. The second phase of that trial is then you have to show it was for the benefit of a gang, which is much more tenuous. It's much harder to show that it's for the benefit of a gang, because not everything necessarily is for the benefit of a gang. You may just be a member of a gang and committing crime. And that makes it harder to give them the gang enhancement sentencing to kind of drop the hammer on them and say, like, don't be a member of a gang, because if you get caught committing any crime, they're really going to drop the hammer on you. Instead of going away for 3 years, maybe you go away for 8 years or something like that. That's what the DA is talking about. And, you know, could a jury of their peers say, like, oh, they got caught with graffiti, vandalizing. Is that for the benefit of a gang? I don't know. Like, how do you make that case that it's for the benefit of a gang by just doing some graffiti? So that's one way, and this was signed into law by Gavin Newsom as part of his Step Forward Act to kind of, you know, there's part of that whole phase early on in his career about, it feels like it was a long time ago, but it was really just like 5 years ago that Democrats were going through this whole soft on crime, criminal justice reform wave. And this was part of it, was they were trying to get rid of this gang enhancement. So AB 333 was in my research, a bad law that, look, if you're trying to crack down on gangs, one deterrent you can use is to use gang enhancements, to say, don't do any crime, don't be a part of a gang, because you'll go to jail for even longer. That's one way you can do it. And that's one way you can crack down on crime. But if you're just going to get picked up for vandalizing, I don't know, how long are you even going to go to jail? Like in California, like, is that a slap on the wrist? You'll be back out on the street anyway. Or in this case, you'll be back on the street a lot sooner. So that's what's happening, is this soft on crime, soft on gang crime is happening here in California, thanks to people like Gavin Newsom who signed laws like this. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like what you said. Just don't be in a gang. Like, just stop doing stupid stuff. Maybe, find better friends, go get a job, go back to school, and don't be in a gang.
Don't be in a gang.
It's probably not going to work out good for you.
And that's why, like, in the recession and COVID, you saw gang membership rise because of the fact that when things get desperate and you're in a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of economic opportunity, sure, your only place to turn is join a gang. That's the only place maybe you can make money. So that's why gang membership rises during recessions or times that are not economically great. But I don't know how they crack down on has there been any good examples of cracking down on crime? Or, I mean, I know in LA, they really cracked down on gangs during the 90s. But it feels like Stockton just never did. It feels like Stockton never did what it was supposed to crack down. And now we're seeing the ramifications of it.
Yeah, I think people don't realize ramifications can come years, decades later. Like we kind of mentioned on a recent episode that it was, I think, in the 1990s that the UK started, making it so much harder to own a gun. And now here they are getting arrested for Facebook, Twitter posts, like crazy stuff. And, that didn't happen right away, obviously, but it's sort of like, well, like we always say here, the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment kind of thing. Anyway, that's getting off topic. I hope that I don't sound insensitive to this incident, because sometimes I have to just kind of like tune out emotionally, because as a mom, I always am like, that's the same age as like 14. I have a 14-year-old daughter. My kids are, of course, getting older every year, but 8 and 9 year old. I have 8 and 9 year old nieces and nephews, and so it's very easy for me to connect that, like that could be that kid, that could be like this kid that I know that I love. You know, it's like that could have been them. It could 20. I have a 20-year-old son. 21 is so young still. I know like it's technically an adult, but my gosh, when you really look back and think about when you were 21, like that's so young. And so this is very tragic. This is very sad. And so I hope that nobody thinks that I'm just sitting here being sarcastic or like just like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, happening. No, like this is awful. I hate that this kind of thing is happening so often that we do tend to just be like, oh, look, another one. Like that's horrible. And it's horrible that any child would die like this at any time. But yeah, like when we think about, we had just had Thanksgiving and now we're preparing for this new holiday season. And like everyone said, this kids should be making their, you know, Hanukkah or Christmas wish list. They should be excited to go get the Christmas tree. And we don't really have that much snow. I don't know if Stockton has snow, but it's like, you know, the winter, like it's just the Christmas break coming up from school, like all the things, all the fun things that these kids should be excited about and the parents excited to do with them. And instead it's just a whole different story. Mm-hmm. And it's hug your babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really don't know where Stockton is. That's funny. We never got snow. It gets cold. It gets cold in Stockton. It gets super hot too. I remember the summers would get like 112. Someone in the chat said, please don't tell me a baby died. I think, what was the youngest age? 4? It was 4, 8, and 14.
I think they were 8, 9, 14, and 21.
8, 9, 14. No, yeah.
We don't know the ages of the injured.
Yeah, there's 11 or 14 injured. So they are babies. I mean, the 8-year-old is like maybe a kid, but it just feels like, wow. It's crazy. So obviously we're going to keep up on this story. This is still a developing story. What's happening? There is the allegation. There is the belief that it's gang related. We've been talking a lot about gang violence. Someone said Stockton has snow, but not the kind that you can think of. Right. That's probably why there's so much gang violence.
That makes sense.
Thank you for that. We're going to keep up on this story as like it progresses. But this is important. This is one of those issues that not wholly political. There is some politics to it, but is an issue that needs to be talked about in Stockton because it seems like no one else is talking about it. Kind of like illegal grows up in Northern California from the Mexican and Chinese cartels. You talk to most people, they don't know about this stuff. And then people don't know about how bad gang violence is here in California. It's just never talked about. So
California